Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Revival of America podcast. This is Jenny. I'm the owner and the host of the Revival of America. Today, everybody, we have Derek Johnson in the house. So please, as you know, with Derek, it's kind of real raw talk. Well, it's not kind of, it is real raw talk with Derek Johnson. So he's going to be talking a little bit about, we're going to be doing some real talking about other stuff than just the Epstein stuff. He wants to talk about the 5D chess moves. He wants to talk about the auto pen. He wants to talk about so much stuff, everybody. So hang in there. If we can get to some questions today, we will. Otherwise, Derek's good and given a great presentation, and he answers a lot of questions along the way. So please, everybody, sit back and enjoy. And like I said, if we can get to some questions, we certainly will. Also, too, everybody, if you come in late to the podcast, or if you want to share the podcast with somebody, friends or family, you can follow the podcast host on the podcast host or the social medias, which are iHeartRadio, Spotify, Anchor, Apple, Google, Breaker, PocketCast, Podbean, Riverside, Amazon Music. We are being listened to in over 100 countries, everybody, so we are making some great positive news. Social medias are Jenny Dreed Facebook, at Jenny_Dreed X, at JDreed Rumble, at JDreed True Social, at JDreed Instagram, at the Revival of America right here on Telegram, the Revival of America on YouTube, and then TikTok is at the official JDreed. Three of them are not verified yet. All of the rest of the social medias are, because I want you guys to know those are my legitimate accounts. The three that aren't are TikTok, True Social, and YouTube. So I'm waiting for those verifications. Once I get those, I will let you know. Also, everybody, if you get a random text or a message of some sort somehow saying they're me, it is not asking you if you're ready for the scare event, crypto, finances. Know that that is not me. I will not randomly reach out to you and ask you for any of those questions. So if you get something like that, please block them, report them as well, and let me know so I can make sure they're not here in this channel or that they're on any of my other social medias, because I like to block those little suckers, because those scammers are out in full force, everybody. So you got to be really careful. I hear a lot of horrifying stories, so please be careful. Don't fall for it. At this stage in the game, I say it every podcast. I know many others do. If you guys fall for that, and I know some people still fall for it, because sometimes I get it. Some of these messages can be pretty believable, but if it doesn't sit right, if it seems like if it's too good to be true, it more than likely is. And obviously, feel like if it's a red flag, then go with your gut. So be careful out there, everybody. And again, be careful who you listen to, who you follow, what you're putting into your mind. If you're not strong in the mind, everybody, it is wackadoodle out there. It is the wild, wild west out there. There's a lot of BS, uh, shit being put out there, a lot of focus on just surface shit, noise. Stay out of it, everybody. Get out of those chats, get out of those lives, whatever it may be, the comments. If you can't handle, if it doesn't feel right, get out of them. And if you don't have to go in there and you don't want to, just don't do it, everybody, because what we're seeing is a lot of these fakesters, influencers, podcasters, whatever, the more they speak, the more they expose themselves. And that is a positive thing for us here that are in the movement for the right reasons. Continue to support Trump, because then we can finally see what maybe we've been talking about. Okay, yeah, this person's not for real or they're fake, whatever it is. But we knew this was going to happen. A lot of these podcasters, influencers were going to go to the wayside, and we're starting to see them expose themselves. So just know that Trump and everybody, his team and everybody, they see it all. They caught them all. They have it all. And they're watching us as well. They know what we're saying. So just stick and stay, guys, with the 3 to 5 people that haven't led you wrong through the course of your journey, because more than likely they're going to get you over the hump. And stick and stay with Trump, everybody. We're having a lot of these so-called Trump supporters jump ship and abandon the whole Trump MAGA movement, burning the red hats, the white hats, make America great again. It's just absolute insanity out there, you guys. These guys are, this is the definition of insanity, guys. So please be careful again who you follow. Also, to everybody, if you have a story or a journey you'd like to get onto the podcast, please reach out to me. Send the submissions to the submission email only, because people have been sending them to my Revival of America, because that's what I had before I created the submissions. And I apologize. Some of those got buried and I wasn't able to get back to those individuals right away. So send them to TROA submissions at yahoo.com. And that stands for the Revival of America. So it's TROA submissions at yahoo.com. We will vet them. We will make sure it's a real person, real story. Because unfortunately, you have those people too that just want to, have their 5 minutes of fame and make up some kind of bullshit shit. So So I apologize for that, but unfortunately, this is kind of the way the world is right now. And then also, everybody, check out the website, sign up for the newsletter. It is free. You get the latest notifications on podcasts, as well as the weekly lineup of shows with the guests, the times, and where they're going to be, whether they're going to be here on Telegram, my Rumble page, or X Spaces. So with that, everybody, Derek is in the house. We've got 90 minutes tonight. So please sit back, enjoy the show, because Derek is going to talk about real stuff that matters. Not that Epstein doesn't, but we've been screaming about Epstein for a long time. And, X over there wants to say, well, where are the news? This is where you get the news. No, we've been screaming, where were you 5 years ago? So be careful over there on X, everybody. It's a very huge misinformation, disinformation station. So Derek's going to come and talk about real shit that matters along with Epstein, but he's not just going to focus on the Epstein, because we all know that that's going to pop out to be something bigger than what the surface people or these fakesters are just talking about the surface stuff. So hello, Derek. How are you?
Oh, I'm doing gravy. It's all par for the course.
Yeah, well, and I'm seeing your posts, and you're doing a great job out there, by the way, just reminding people that basically, if you're paying attention, reading the laws and orders, and or listening to what I'm saying, it's all right here. And you've been talking about it for ever since you've come onto the scene. So I want to give you kudos for that. I just feel like, you're just getting a lot of your validation. Well deserved, my friend. Congratulations.
Well, it's more kind of relieving for all the people who served under Obama too, because it was. Now, granted, we can make a great example out of all the past period, which has to be done delicately, no doubt, because that's where terminology comes in with soldiers. But um, I mean, the bureaucrat. It's kind of humorous to me and I don't get a lot of attacks from veterans. Not crazy, but I mean, what's humorous though is when it does happen, it's like you're mad at me for keeping an oath and showing people laws and orders which are public, and our military regulations are public. Everything about the military is public except for the actual mission until it's unclassified. Um, but you're not mad at the bureaucrats that made up all these man-made wars. I mean, so like Korea, Vietnam, all the little conflicts in between, Lebanon, Libya, um, but Iraq the first time, Bosnia, Kosovo, Somalia, Panama. All these different conflicts, and there's some that haven't even been uh, told yet, and some of those run under Obama as well. Um, but I don't talk about some of them because they're not unclassified, and when you're trying to make a name bigger in the community of any kind of clearance related stuff, depending on where they take it. I know they're eliminating lobbyists and defense contracts, but they do have to have trusted people. Then you keep it quiet and you prove you can do that. But there's so many things that's happened, even just in the last 20 years, that should piss off more veterans to look at what was going on behind the scenes. Just like we don't even have to go too far back. We can just go to Bush Sr. and work your way up. And all that time under Jimmy Carter's executive order 12170 with a declared national emergency from 1979, here they are making more wars, and their incompetence was showing as well for not being able to keep a balanced budget. And those politicians, career politicians, pocketing all that, and then using people as pawns like Martha Stewart and different people oh boy, they drug all these people through the ringer and made them examples of stuff they were actually doing. And then all of a sudden, $2.3 trillion is missing from the Pentagon on September the 10th. They announced that to the world. And the next day, 2001, bam, September the 11th happens. The real threat was Iran over there the whole time chanting death to Israel and death to the United States. They're the ones with the real real weapons of mass destruction, and how people cannot just. It's really that simple. I mean, too many people right now people are cluttering their lives with stuff that don't matter, and instead of getting down to, okay, what do you know, what can you know, what can you work with, and then make it applicable. And that's exactly what President Trump, that's what they're working with. And it baffles me daily that people, well, the people who have stumbled across me and or follow me and or listen to me, whatever that may be, I mean, the answers are all there. There's nothing new. There's nothing new. There's nobody new coming out as far as like on the outside of President Trump and that. There's nobody new. Nothing new, nobody new. There's nothing new to learn. Everything that's rolling out right now are your validations. It's not new material. It's new to the people who've never heard it, but it's not new to the people who know what's going on by, like a broken record, laws and orders. But laws and orders are no good either unless they're enforced. And so that's what everybody's watching, is the enforcement of it. But I mean, Jimmy Carter's executive order is a prime example of no enforcement. I mean, we're talking about, well, I say the number 37 years because there was a line drawn in the sand on the date of November the 8th, 2016. That's where the clear breakage is between President Trump and what's taking place right now, and then everything of the past. But there's a clear line in the sand. And Jimmy Carter, for 37 years, that executive order was continued every 2 years by the Congress and a president's signature. How is it an emergency? After two, okay, we can maybe give some leniency. 4, 6 years, an emergency that's 37 years old. It's that, but by date to date, because that executive order is still open. President Trump hasn't terminated it yet. Therefore, it's 46 years old. I mean, we're talking about almost a half a century. And,
what executive order was that, Derek? Sorry.
12170.
Thank you.
From 1979. So, and that's just the basic knowings of how your three branches of government works, and then executive orders. I mean, I've actually heard people even ask, are executive orders corporate? And I'm like, no, they've been around since the foundation. And it says exactly what it says: executive, president, executive order. So it just shows people that Iran was over here building these facilities. And then you had your quote unquote great Obama Iran deal, which specifically said, and to this day, it's on the White House, on Obama's White House archives, telling you that it was supposed to be a total enrichment of 3.67. And so you look back at the NDAAs, which is your National Defense Authorization Acts, your defense budgets. Just look at the ones from 2021 to 2025, when the world thought, quote unquote, Joe was president. All those NDAAs have Israel in there, Iran in there, and Russia, and it's all a buildup. Meaning like it starts low, verbiage wise, and it builds up. So the people out there yelling unconstitutional what President Trump's doing, and he's incompetent and this and that, and then you're freaking rhinos. They're not Republicans and conservatives and patriots. They just, all those who jumped ship in the last 2 weeks are rhinos, and also they're ignorant. And I'll stick with ignorant because at least ignorance can be presented evidence and give a shot to get on board. Stupid is just being completely showing the evidence to someone, and they sitting there want to just argue with you when you're like, here's the evidence. You thought, quote unquote, Joe was president from 2021 to 2025. So if you want to remain with that, I'll play devil's advocate for a moment. since you just can't get over into special operations and military laws, military orders, which you claim most Republicans, conservatives claim to be military supporters, but think that we don't work on military laws and regulations and pair those with executive orders, national emergencies, proclamations, and treaties, which are the 4 ways military does pair with federal. I mean, that's beyond like astonishing to me. But then you say, okay, well, you thought that Joe was president. You thought this. So why does these budgets here, defense budgets, that comes out of your taxpayer dollar as of right now, as of the past, it's been your taxpayer money. That you don't want to know that this was, you're yelling unconstitutional, or you're saying, oh, President Trump should do this. Not President Trump needs people's advice right now, like a submarine needs a screen door. All right. No one should be even questioning President Trump. This is a military operation. It's all outlining laws and orders. So all these people, there's so many conundrums out there. I call it a ball of yarn information. People are just, it's like a ball of yarn. And it's like everybody's in this like massive auditorium, and it's just, it sounds like a Chinese game show. You're like, what the hell are they saying? And it's like, it's just a bunch of noise. And there's a script that President Trump's working with. It's called laws and orders, but military more specifically. So if you're sitting with someone, you say, well, why do all these defense budgets have escalation verbiage in it, meaning it's getting bigger and bigger and bigger? And then one of them in particular specifically says it. It's not a question form. It says that. It specifically says Iran is at 20% enrichment. And this was in 2021. And Obama's great, quote unquote, great deal, they were supposed to be at 3.67, which if you look from 2021 to 2016, just in 5 years, they went from 3.67 to 20% being conservative. And then the the International Atomic Energy Agency, IAEA, reported them at 83.7 out of 90% total for a bomb. And then one of those NDAAs showed that specifically that Iran was not adhering to the IAEA anymore. And this was quote unquote under what people thought of Biden. So see, this proves your basic core functions of the United States of America, your 3 branches of government, and then how the military is funded. Just simple freaking legislation. And then all these people who are following all these panty wasters out there, that's what I call them, they're panty wasters. People like Candace Owens and Gunther and all these people, they don't know shit from Chinola. All right, they don't know anything. They don't know their head from a hole in the ground. They're eye candy. They're algorithm whores. And people just keep going over there for that. And it's like, you don't need that. You don't need any of that. That is the swamp rhetoric. Now, they may be a good person at heart when their phone ain't in their hand, but good people don't need to be leading right now simply because they're good people. The whole point of draining the swamp is to get rid of everything that replicates it and demand better people in place. Now, I didn't want to be a podcaster, and I ain't telling God what I am and ain't going to be, but I didn't do this. I'm a retired veteran keeping an oath, which is a little bit different than hosts and podcasters and people out there. That's why my colorful language tends to offend some people. But, I don't care at the end of the day because, again, I'm offended that you're offended. I mean, we can just all be offended, like one of John Rich's new songs. We can just all be offended then. But if people want difference, then you gotta go to the basic core foundation, and that's what President Trump's working with. And how do you quell a storm of noise? You go to the foundation always. In the movie Pure Country, George Strait, he goes back to his roots, and his grandma gave his buddy some advice, And when he saw it, when he finally found him, he said, "How'd you find me?" He said, "Well, something about tree and chopping off the tree and its roots." He goes, "Grandma Ivy, right? Well, you chop off the top of a tree and let the roots and everything catch up, right?" So many people are adding cluster to their lives that don't have to. And people like me are saying, "Well, I don't care if I hurt your feelings. They may need to be hurt. But if you listen to me the correct way, you won't have your feelings hurt because I lead you to all the answers." All right. Also, in Iran, the reports of Iran. What are the odds that on December the 20th, 2019, so up before then, where the line was drawn in the sand, November the 8th, 2016, that's the clear line. Go time was on January the 20th, 2017, but the line was drawn November the 8th, 2016. President Trump's first win. All right. Obama had 20 reports on Iran to the Congress. Obama did. Iran is not, it didn't just come up in the last few weeks like Republicans and conservatives and rhinos and make you think. Obama had 20 presidential reports to the Congress. 20. President Trump had 4. His last report to the Congress was December the 20th, 2019. What are the odds and coincidence that that is the day that the Democratic House of Representatives under him, Democrats, bipartisan here, Democrats, House Representatives introduced the war order, the amendment to the War Powers Act, Section 1550, that was put in there on that day, December the 20th, 2019. What are the odds it was on that day? Which that's the very order that allows all of the orders up under that, executive orders and all the military actions and everything. That's what President Trump is working up under. That's Title 50, Chapter 33. With Title 50, though, is Congress and the Secretary of Defense. Title 10 is presidential. Title 10, Chapter 47 is your Uniform Code of Military Justice, which is military law. All right. So you have to know those basic formulas first. So the last presidential order from December the 20th, 2019, the next presidential anything to the Congress on Iran was December 23rd, 2024. So now your average normie out there is going to say, well, that was 2024. That would be Joe Biden. Well, that's why you got to know law. Then you got to go back to December the 20th, 2019. Title 50, Chapter 33, Section 1550. If you scroll to the bottom of the page, it says an executive document in there. Executive would be presidential. Executive document. And it specifically says Memorandum of President, Memorandum to the Secretary of Defense. And they always read this way. So the very first line always reads this way: as President of the Constitution, and also due to Title 3, Section 301. It always reads that way. It says as President. It don't say as the President of the Constitution. It says as President. It's very specific. People need to listen. That is very key. That's very key to understanding laws as well. Verbiage, punctuation, where a comma is, where a period is, where a semicolon is, where a colon is. That's very, very vital. It says as President, not the President of the Constitution, and also Title 3, Section 301. I hereby delegate the authority and functions vested in the President. There's your specific president, the President of Public Law, Section 1550, to the Congress. Well, let me show you something really quick. Obama had an executive document in Title 22, Chapter 93, which is Foreign Relations. He had an executive document And it reads the same way at the first line. It says, as president of the United States Constitution, the Constitution, and Title 3, Section 301. Then it says, I command you. So it's talking to the person. And his memo was to the Secretary of State, this was in 2013, and he was talking about his 2012, so that would have been whom? Hillary Clinton. All right, so, and then it says, I command you to do this. You will do this. Well, what it says, according to what? Public law and a number there. I think 112-150 or something like that. But anyway, when you Google 112-150 or whichever law it was on there, I have to go back and look. But when you look that up, guess whose law it was? His. But when you go to the executive document in Title 50, Chapter 33, Section 1550, and you go down to that executive document, that's quote unquote Joe telling the Secretary of Defense to adhere to the president of 1550. Well, the president of 1550 is Donald John Trump on December the 20th, 2019. And the Secretary of Defense is under the president. And the Secretary of Defense only ever gets in charge if the president dies. That's what they call an order of succession. Well, is President Trump alive? Yes, he is. So why in the hell is quote unquote Joe Biden relinquishing his authority and functions as president to President Donald John Trump? And the odds that it's on the last, all that. The other thing that ties it in, before we get to the other meat to it, this is just all like your little cherries on your icing and icing on the cake. Before we get to the other fun stuff, President Trump just in February the 4th, 2025, issued another national security presidential memorandum. It's called an NSPM-2. All right. Every president has had a national security memorandum, but they named them something different. Every president, except for your cases of Kennedy and then him being quote unquote assassinated, and then Johnson, that was a continuation. They have the same name. All right. Then you have Nixon and Ford, same thing, because they quote unquote impeached Nixon. All right. And then Ford, his numbers carry on. There's not a new slate of starting with number 1, 2, 3, 4, etc. They just kept right on going. But everyone after President Ford has their own name for their own. So Obama was PPDs. President Trump is NSPM. They showed quote unquote Biden with NSM, and then they showed all the others. You have to go back and look at it. So when you go look at those, and they have these archived, you can actually look at them. Every single president has an order of succession within their national security memorandums. Every single president, except for quote unquote Joe. Why? You have an order of succession just in case a president dies, whether it be assassination or natural. So why doesn't Joe have any kind of order of succession anywhere? The most recent order of succession within the Department of Defense is from way back December the 10th, 2020, which are current in our current Department of Defense directives right now. The most recent is from December the 10th, 2020. So those little things are just your little cherries before you even get to all the other things. So right now, what I've been hearing a lot of is we want justice. We want justice. Nothing changes until we see people arrested. It's kind of like birthday parties. When you're planning a birthday party, most of your attendance they just get to reap the benefits of the party, the cake, singing happy birthday and all the, all the other stuff, whether it's a surprise party or planned party, doesn't matter. They get to reap the benefits. Champagne, wine, whatever it is you're drinking, whatever. Punch, whatever. Hunch punch, all of it. Spike punch, whatever you're doing. You get to reap the benefits. But some people care. Some people think about the people. I do. I'm one of those thoughtful people who think about who planned this and the work they put into it and everything that led up to that party. Putting out the chairs and the tables and the tablecloths and the plates and the forks and the spoons and the cooking of the cake or whatever it is. All these people yelling they want justice. Well, you can identify with justice because why? It's an aftermath of criminal behavior and activities. But why aren't we trying to focus on, hey, how in the hell did we get here? See, that's exactly why it's a multiple layered operation. And I had a comment last night on one of my podcasts where they were like, why don't they just come out and show it? I'm like, oh, so you're that same attitude of you just want justice. You want the aftermath. You don't want to see what led to it, your roles, your duties, your responsibilities, and how we prevent this crap from festering again. Because we were in the place of festering. We weren't in some midway or it was not too bad, but not too good. No, we were festered. Every facet of everything. I mean, every facet. Department of this, department of that, department of this, department of that, department of this, every department was festered. All your 3-letter agencies were festered. They were all weaponized. Everything. And people think this shit changes overnight. And that's what like really irks me. Because I think about all the men and women who have paid the sacrifice, who have laid down their life, and the ones still serving, whether they know what's going on lawfully or not, it doesn't matter. They're under an oath. They will take a lawful order, and all the orders are lawful. All the laws are lawful. So, and the ones yelling unconstitutional, what's humorous about that is I'm like, I want to tell all these liberals, if they had a brain, you do realize that you're saying unconstitutional, but all the laws that President Trump are working with were all the laws of past Congresses. You do realize that, correct? So if it was unlawful, why is it still on the law books? And by the way, he's using more military laws than he's using federal. So you're also crapping on the military every time you think like that. Every time. When there's a clear answer. So my passion sometimes sounds like I'm angry or mad or bitter or frustrated or complaining or whining or griping. No, I'm passionate. Going, you don't need the clutter. You don't need the clutter. You don't have to have the clutter. You don't have to have all of these surface level drama, propaganda people. When there's a clear law in place, and it's military law mainly, and it also validates and also it's like an honorable thing for every single veteran that does know what's going on. You don't worry about the ones that don't. You focus on the ones that do and who are contributing. So it also goes back to reestablishing your procedures, your principles, your standards, and all these things to identify criminal acts. See, we're always going to have to be teaching younger generations what to identify and also skill sets. Some skills can be taught, some you just got to be born with. And that's why that saying is cream always rises to the top, because some skills you can't teach. And I was explaining that today on some of my posts about the difference in intelligence and smart. You can't teach some intelligence, you just can't teach it sometimes. There may be a few variables there, but there's mainly intelligence. But smart, you can be smart on your job, but it don't mean that you're intelligent on a broad spectrum. You could be very smart as a welder or a mechanic or whatever it may be. You may be very smart at that because you've been doing it and you have experience and you've built up. But when it comes to massive layers of operations, strategies, tactics, flanks, retreats, A, B, C, D, plans, like whatever it could be. When it comes to layers, it requires intelligence for that. And that's why I didn't know how I was going to be able to hold a podcast when I first went viral, because I'm like, well, how do you bridge the gap between all of these variables and then your average everyday person who has a short attention span and they want an answer like that? Get to the point. Get to the point. Hurry up. Well, if it takes you 30 minutes, well, it ain't worth it's just it's a lost cause. And that's why we look the way we look, because the education has been dummied down in this nation. So my thing right now is like, if you don't believe laws and orders, then you must believe President Trump has no idea what he's doing. I mean, that would be the theme right now. If you don't trust laws and orders, or if you don't know laws and orders, you can't trust them if you don't know them. But if you're whining, griping, complaining, then the method to your madness is, what is President Trump working with? Laws and orders. But if you don't know those, you can't trust those. But if you're already past the point of reading and you're whatever it is, and you're like, or let's say that people out there who, like some of these others who think they knew and they jumped ship, well, again, you either have you have, well, there ain't really an either or. You must believe that President Trump has no idea what he's doing, even though he's just the face of everything. He's not even he is brilliant, very brilliant, very high IQ. And so you have to think like that. And as long as there's a continuity of government invoked, which law shows there is, partial, then that means there's a military occupation. And that's where you have to know what a continuity of government is and what it consists of. Presidential emergency action documents. Continuity of government was established by President Eisenhower, and he was also a 5-star general retired, which generals don't really retire. So there's the other part to that. But a 5-star general, we've only had 8 5-star generals and admirals, 8 together, since the Civil War. This is a rare rank. Not many people make it to a 5-star general. So when you look at continuity of government, it can't be separated from presidential emergency action documents. Now, what they have shown the people, they, the swamp, they, the ignorant pronouns, the swamp out there, from 1951 to 2016, they would use laws and orders as a crutch because the American people weren't reading laws and orders. The American people were on the basis of, you have to be a lawyer to know the law. You have to be an attorney to know the law. That's what the American people, or you have to be a professor to be able to say this or to know this. You have to be a doctor to be able to know this. That's what people started buying it. And now our society, it's a societal problem, has that ingrained in their heads that a guy like me who don't have a law degree can't read the same law books that the lawyers have to study and read to pass a test. I'm just not in a building reading those books trying to pass a test. I mean, the simple thing that stands between me and a quote unquote registered attorney is simply a test. That's it. That's it. So Americans have been dummied down, and they were told all these years when things would take place with the quote unquote government, then the few little who would rise up throughout history of the last 70 years, let's say, the few that would show any kind of resistance, well, their resistance was still mainly opinion based, not law based and fact based. And then these bureaucrats would go, well, this is under the law here, blah, 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 blah. And then what do those people do? Dummy down, cower down, and backed off. And Americans quit knowing what you're supposed to know. We, the people, are the 3 most watered down words, diluted right now, that we have. We, the people, actually means we're the government. And Franklin Roosevelt, his famous speech in 1942 where he said, when I get done doing what I'm doing, the power goes back to the people. Wow, don't that sound like another speech from January the 20th, 2017, that we're taking the power out of D.C. and giving it back to you, the people? So see, always people have to know your accountability, your responsibility, your duties, and your roles. You always have to know that, and you always have to practice that. And we won't have to look like this. And why does it matter? Well, when everybody's pulling their weight, contributing where you're supposed to contribute, then when you're on the front, when you're a good person, good human, good moral, good decency, just being a good human, just being what you're supposed to be, as God commanded you to be. When you're good on the front and everybody follows suit, then there'll be less discrepancies along the way. And when there is one, it's easy to identify. Versus the flip side of that, which is all these people who sound good, they talk good, they look good, they say all the right words, they say the key words, the trigger words, and you just go, oh, they said this, and this. And it's like, they're not good people. They're not this or that, whatever it is, because then they'll show a hiccup or something they'll do, and it's like, and it takes a skill set to find that little hiccup. And that's what people have been seeing. So when you have a continuity of government, you have evidence of a military occupation because of the way President Eisenhower established it and the way it's prescribed by the law. And what President Trump is doing is beating the swamp with their own swamp rhetoric and reversing it on them. Because not a single one have said, oh, not them up there. They ain't said you can't do that. They'll say stuff it's against the law. Well, that could be a distraction to make people to go read the law, which, again, if you're in the command seat right now, you got to be pretty disappointed with Americans. At this point, at July 2025, the command room has to be just as disappointed as I am, which is why President Trump put a tweet out, or his truth, roasting people on this Epstein stuff. Because, again, there's a bigger picture. There's a bigger play. It's draining the whole swamp. And if we did it the way the rhinos have, just rhinos alone, and just these never Trumpers have acted in the last week, if we just did it by their whatever they want alone, we would just knock out a few people. Now, all this has all been pre-planned. And so what's happened, as Jenny was alluding to about the earlier, and what I'm alluding to right now, is the fact that everything that the people who jumped ship did just this week alone with the Epstein stuff, they just think they jumped ship with Iran, and then all of a sudden that they left it just like that, and now they're on Epstein. Same people who are supposed to be Republicans now, conservatives, President Trump supporters. All of a sudden, the man they thought was shot at last year, oh, they just jumped ship with him. I mean, and all the things he's done. So if you look at that little group alone, President Trump could not have done this without military law, because the federal portion of what people call the government, that whole swamp, well, they've used the laws before in the past too. Good, bad, or indifferent. There's times in history there were good things done with swamp people because they had to. They couldn't just be all corrupt all the time. They had to create a balance for people. They had to create their own balance. They created solutions. See, it's like that. I have it in my book. They created a problem they already had a solution to. Now, there were some problems out there that still turned out to be a good solution, but what were they doing on the backside? When if they were doing everything right from the start, they still could have had fruits of labor. But their mindset don't think like that. So President Trump had to use their own rhetoric on them, but he had to use military. That's why 2 years are very important, 1951 and 1973. 1951, Congress put term limits on the president, but not themselves. Now, it's not even constitutional to put term limits on the president. Article 2, Section 1, Clause 1, or Article 2, Clause, Section, excuse, I have to set it backwards, Section 1, Clause 1. So go look it up. Nowhere in there. It just says 4 years in a term. And George Washington and all those founders said, well, we think a president may only need 2 terms. But those men back then, you got to go think of where they were in their life and what they had just gone through, what they fought for, what they established. They weren't fighting a bunch of people who want to chop their yin-yangs off and get you to fund their sex changes. I mean, think of how the shit that we're going through. This is just shit. And I know some people don't like that word, but you got to use that word. It's just a bunch of shit. If this ain't even getting to our way of life, this ain't getting to the majority of people who are like, man, God Almighty, like, what's that got to do with driving across a interstate or a bridge and infrastructure and this and potholes and this and that? My God, have mercy. Look at where they were and where we are now. So, I mean, we can't even get to real actual topics for the liberals out there because Republicans, conservatives all of a sudden want to fight when the crap hits the fan, and it festered. Now Republicans, oh, well, you do this and do that. Why aren't you doing this? Where have you been? And the liberals, they festered up. Now they're not that big. It's not that big out there. They're not, and the numbers on the elections don't reflect the real numbers when the real numbers come out. But again, the liberals, Republicans Republicans and conservatives are the reason why liberals have more voice, more power, and more not power on the federal, but power meaning with their vocals. Because everybody's let this stuff just fester and fester and fester and fester. Fox News had the dude on in the 90s where he was offended because the quarter had "In God We Trust" on it. Well, that was Fox News doing that. So why do people still watch Fox? It's propaganda, it's drama. And Americans love them some drama and propaganda. So 1951, Congress broke the Constitution. And in 1973, they amped it up. They made it to where a president had to declare a national emergency just to use the National Guard or the troops. And nowhere in the Constitution does it say that. Nowhere. Because if everybody was doing what they're supposed to be doing on the front, president in his spot, vice president in his spot, cabinet and what they're doing, the House, the Senate, if everybody's doing what they're supposed to be doing on the front, there wouldn't be many discrepancies on meeting eye to eye along the way. When the government's cleaned out, we're not focused on illegal migrants here who can't come here the right way, all right, didn't come here the right way, and all these liberals out there yelling due process. They don't deserve due process because they're not citizens. Then you have your sovereign nationals out there stinking things up, saying that being a citizen is corporate. No, it's not. It's in the Federalist Papers. Has nothing to do with the corporation. The corporation is completely the 1870s moving forward. You have all these people out there just stirring stuff up because most people are selfish. Most people want things like the sovereign nationals. Every one of them have a president and a governor. Every one of them. And you can't tell them any different. And so I'm like, oh, so you're the president. Wait, okay, so you're president and you're the governor? How's that work? Well, what's President Trump doing? No, he's just demolishing the corporation. Oh, so he's demolishing the corporation and they hand everything to you? Is it so you want power? I mean, look where we are. Think of all the different stuff that people have to deal with. And I'm sitting over here saying, hey, put all that aside. President Trump's working with this. He's taking all their language and flipping it on them. He activated the reserve components. He activated the National Guard. Then he used the active duty on our streets. Every single one of those must be under military laws and the Constitution. And they are. And that's all you need to know. And then look at the chessboard. And I'm not the greatest at playing chess, but I get the theory because I don't play chess, period. But I get the theory. I've studied chess enough to get the theory of it. And a lot of things, guitar has theory, piano, everything has a theory. All right. It's a method to the madness. And so when you look at all of these people, then you go over and look at the Law of War Manual. The Law of War Manual has a section in there for humanity. And it says you can't go back 20, 30, 40 years and try somebody on something. All right. Well, everybody should deserve that. But it also shows that if everybody's doing what they're supposed to be doing on the front, so if someone harasses you, have the integrity to report it then. Don't wait 20, 30, 40 years when someone gets in a position of either power or money or status and go, oh, he tried to kiss me in the hallway 50 years ago. I mean, that is what leads society into a bad spot, because society and their way of thinking can damn you sometimes, depending on who it is and what it is. And if you go read the Federalist Papers, they talk about that. They talk, and it's kind of like that saying, I'd rather be judged by 6 or 12 than I would be by 1. Well, so, or there's a lot of different sayings out there. The Federalist Papers covered this. But look where we are. We're almost in the flip of it. Now we're 50% hate you, 50% love you. And you could be absolutely 100% innocent. Look at the people who served in prison, who DNA they didn't have, and then DNA proved they didn't do it. And go back to the original case where 50% thought they were guilty with no evidence. Can you imagine sitting in a cell knowing you did not commit a crime? So see, if everybody does what you're supposed to do on the front versus letting things fester, then you won't have to get to a conundrum and a ball of yarn and a just a chaotic place where you I don't know if I know, or I don't know, or this or whatever it is. So there's a method to the madness, and that method is going to our foundation, which is why we're here. Liberals use the term Constitution. Liberals use the terms First Amendment. They used they want that. Oh boy, did they want it. But they don't even know how to operate. But the principle to that is that, well, you as a conservative, Republican, patriot, independent, President Trump supporter, whatever you are, supposed to be a President Trump supporter no matter what. But whichever one of those you were, and now President Trump supporter, you definitely want to know what he's working with, because you don't want to look like them. And that's what everybody's looked like in the past week. I mean, it's truly, it's hilarious to people who know. So draining the swamp had to have evidence for the same quote unquote due process that the liberals are screaming out there. President Trump has to have evidence, and they have that. And then it had to be relevant. It had to be something relevant. So it's like I show people, there's 2 ways you can look at it. You can get on the front and understand special operations and how they would have had to drain the swamp lawfully and also funnel them and trap them. That's what they've done. And I've used this analogy before, where sometimes it's better to trap your enemy and make them tell on themselves versus, or raise the white flag, versus tattling on them and exposing them straight out the gate. And if people would seek to comprehend, that is exactly what a military occupation is. The military occupation is a parameter. It sets a parameter where they're not going to let it go past that wall, if you will. Since President Trump in the wall, that'd be a good visual. It's a parameter set, meaning here's our playground, here's the wall, and then they're not going to go here, here, and here and do this, here, this, that. The ones that were still free to roam as when this started. And then you also have the ones you take out right out front. And then you give them the ones that deserve plea deals or qualify for plea deals, you give them a plea deal. And you say, well, if you do that, so what happens when you separate criminals? Everybody in here has probably watched some sort of cop show or something, or forensic show. What happens when you separate people who are accomplices? When you separate them, well, you got different personalities, and then some get different kinds of plea deals. So what happens? They start tattling, they start ratting. So then also you got to look at the other piece, the chessboard. When you remove certain pieces out there that were key components of a system, even if it was a bad system, but when you remove key components, then what happens? Well, when one down here hadn't heard from another, then they have what? They have things that they've set up just in case they don't hear this or they don't hear that. If you ain't heard from me by here, then do this, then it means this. So then they start messing up, some of them. And that's how you have to, that's when President Trump said, follow the money. Well, following the money requires getting in and tracking the money, finding out how they operate, their systems, who it is, what they're doing. So see, if people would seek to appreciate what all has been done in 9 years, look at all the accomplishments on the economic side. They're doing multiple layered operations. They're keeping the economy rolling. They're doing what they got to do here. But also some were distraction pieces, some certain things. You know, you have your people who go, well, why were eggs $12? Well, it got your attention, didn't it? You're whining, complaining about it. Am I right or am I right? Yeah, you were complaining about it, so it got your attention. So they're also getting people's attention to do what? Get involved, but to be educated the correct way on the right stuff, not this drama and propaganda. But they also can't do what? Right now, they can't take away freedom of expression. So they can't just go out there and just knock off all these platforms without what? Saying, hey, here's the new set principle. This is what they did in 1798. They had this thing called the 1798 Aliens and Seditions Act and the seditions portion. And if you were talking against the government, you had punishment. Also in 1862, when they added foreign and domestic to the oath, it didn't have anything to do, veterans, with going overseas. Has nothing to do with that. It was called the Ironclad Test Oath. It was for identifying those who were absolutely hardcore about this nation and our ideologies. And if anybody acted against this nation, our foundation, our ideologies, you were a foreign entity. That is exactly what Abraham Lincoln and that meant in 1862. So look at all the people right now looking like foreign entities. You could really arrest a lot of people if you wanted to. And under military law, that's why President Trump said the other day, anyone who throws rocks now at vehicles, you're going to be arrested. All right. Everybody's under a military law. You're under a martial law. That's what a military occupation is. It's just straight up what it is. You hear all these people out there talking about, what if we go? Well, could that lead us to martial law? We're already in it. That's exactly what a military occupation is. And there's laws and orders that show all your continuity government and vote. You can't partially invoke something revoke something if it wasn't invoked. And then it proves there is a continuity government. There was a full one, and now we're in a partial one. Why would you need a partial one if there wasn't a continuity government pyramid? I mean, it's just like, how can people not see this stuff? So it's like, it's frustrating in other ways, because when people really want to know, you're like, man, it's here it is. This is it. This is your formula. This is what President Trump's working with. So there are all these variables out there, and people just, if I might say, here's the foundation, here's what you got to look at. They're draining the swamp, but they also set up parameter, but then they also wouldn't let it get past that parameter. That way it wasn't dangerous to the people, for the ones still out there roaming, and they're catching them too. And then also this whole Epstein and today, and I saw Jenny posted it, but I'd already seen another report, and I just hadn't got to it, but all the John Solomon and all the special counsel, see, they bait people. And if you're falling for it, God love you. But Iran, they baited people. Everybody took the bait. They started, oh, why are we going to war? Blah, 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 blah. Remember all that talk? Even some of President Trump's quote unquote, like one of the ladies on the prayer team, not our war. And I'm like, you'd be fired. She'd be immediately removed if I was commander in chief. It's not a war. It was an operation. It's all in the NDAAs from 2017 to present day. It's all in Iranian reports to Congress. I mean, it's all there. It was not a war. It ain't going to be a war. It was a capitulation. Iran didn't capitulate. It's real simple. And so this whole Epstein thing, it opens up the can of worms for Clinton, Bush, Obama, all of them. And that's why people have a short memory, and people want to act like this 4 years, which it ain't 4 yet, but this start of President Trump's presidency is separate from everything else. It's not. That is the 45-47. The whole thing is a strategic plan, pre-planned operation. So everything you're watching right now, last week and all this past week, when the whole stuff about, no list and no this and no that and all that, and everybody just jumped right off the ship. Man, woman, overboard. Just completely jumped. Didn't think twice, didn't even hesitate. Just, whoop, I'm jumping. I can't take it anymore. Well, you took the bait. And you didn't have to. You didn't even have to. See, my documents were published January 2021. Published. Meaning I let them open up for my friends and family. I'd already been writing on them way before that. So they already show military occupation and everything going on with the military. So you can know. And so when you look at President Trump's, it's so bad, it's so awesome. I want to say the other word, but I won't say it. But it's so awesome to go look at President Trump's, all of his Supreme Court petitions. You got to go to Supreme Court, go to Google and type in Supreme Court docket search. Enter, pull up the supremecourt.gov, type in the little box. There's two ways to type it. First, I'm going to talk about a specific case, but then second, when you get done reading that case, go back and just type in Donald J. Trump in that little box. And it's going to pull up, I think it's like 10 a page with like 24 tabs now with President Trump. So, think about it. If it's 10, I can't remember, but let's just say it is at 24. That's 240. And that's just the links. That's just your hyperlink. When you click on some of these, you get in there and there'll be 20, 30 petitions, main documents, and you click on those. Now, I highly recommend dragging it to a new tab, because when you click on it, it'll go to it right there on that. And then when you backspace, you can't backspace. You have to go back and do it all over again from the very start. So I highly recommend dragging each hyperlink to a new tab when you want to read a new petition. But 23-939 it's everything has to be done lawfully. So they had to, one, set the traps, two, let these people hang themselves, tell on themselves. So there's two things simultaneously happen right now in the last 2 weeks. One, you saw quote Obama resurfacing on his posts, his media, talking trash about President Trump's big beautiful bill. He's resurfacing. Where was he? Where's he been? Now your average person is going to say, well, he's on social media all the time, and then I've seen him in a few interviews. All things that can be staged, and who could be holding the phone? Someone else. You have not seen Obama, Hillary, Bill, George, Mitt Romney, Kasich. Where are all these people? Look at all these people. John Kerry, Al Gore. Where'd all these people go? If they're free to roam, and they have free roam of this nation, can get in there, even if it doesn't matter. Secret Service, they hop in a vehicle, they want to travel, they want to go on a vacation, they want to go somewhere, but where are these people? Why aren't they rallying? President Trump, see, that's why they showed you all these different visuals you've never seen before. President Trump at these rallies in 2021, 2022, 2023, you've never seen a president get out like President Trump and campaign before the actual election year. So they showed you all these things that show you it's different, it's unique, but it's also part of the plan. Where's Obama? Where's Hillary? Where's Bill? Where's George? Where's Mitt Romney? Where's John Kerry? Where's Al Gore? Where are all these people? And why aren't they out in the streets with all their little delinquents? All that, they got them all out there. I mean, some of it's distraction, some of it's theater, but let's just go devil's advocate again and say, all right, there's all these delinquents out there yelling, screaming. Why aren't their leaders out there going, yeah, we know how to rally. We know how to save America. We're going to really save. Where are they? Where are the Bushes? And did you see Jeb Bush? So see, part of a plea deal on the front would be like, you give plea deals and there's going to be all this trashing of the name and everything like that. There's trashing of the name in the front, the middle, sometimes the end. But you see Jeb Bush put out a big old truth on President Trump, saying how great it was, how he handled Iran. And he annihilated Jeb Bush on the campaign in 2016. Go back and watch that stuff. He annihilated him. He called out George. He called out all the family, President Trump did. He didn't just annihilate Jeb up there. He got them all. Told how George didn't handle 9/11 well. Man, I mean, so look at all the people who have been drained. And how are people still complaining? Will Republican conservative ever be happy? I don't think so. I think that you could make some other people more happy than you can a Republican sometimes because of the piss poor attitudes. And it's all in laws, and they claim to support military, but I don't see any evidence of that. I don't see any evidence yet of those people out there jumping ship, and there's a lot of them, and there's a lot of quote unquote influencers doing it that claim to have been, and so they're not looking at the chessboard. Obama resurfaced, and then right now you're seeing the auto pen come back into play, and President Trump addressing the auto pen today. And then they have what? Fox News saying that quote unquote Joe says, I made every decision, not the auto pen, not an auto pen. I made those decisions. Well, guess what? That's bringing everything back to resurface. And now Obama's resurfacing along with quote unquote Joe. All this stuff is resurfacing and it's building up. Now, the people who want justice, who are on the right side of the fence, all of you good patriots out there, the people who want the good justice, well, that's coming, and you got to look at President Trump's age. He just turned 79. So when you think of an average male lifespan, he's already, according to most studies, 78 right now is still the average for a male. So give or take, wouldn't matter, but still, he is in bonus round. They're not going to wait till he's 90 years old to exonerate him. All right, because there's no way to know how long you're going to live. All right, so a lot of people we're coming to the best part of it, and everybody's jumping ship. That's always how it always goes. But it also is going to be what elevates all your new podcasters, all your new hosts and different people, your journalists, etc. That's what's going to elevate, because this is a world history, biblical, monumental, historical operation, and it's cleaning out everything. So it's going to have new birth for so many things, but it's also important why people identify that. All right. And so President Trump, that's exactly what's taking place right now by laws. If people would go read the laws of a military occupation, continuity of government, and then get into some special operations like the government in exile and your puppet government, and President Trump's validated all this in speeches, occupied country, white flag of surrender, capitulations, puppet government. All those things have been in his speeches and or press conferences. Those are not government terms or law war manual terms. Occupied territory and your puppet government are in the same chapter, and it's a military occupation chapter. And then your capitulations and white flag and surrender, they're in the same chapter. But he's already validated this is a military operation, military occupation, government in exile, puppet government, all the things that were used in the 40s. It's nothing new. It's new for the generations right now because most people who lived through the 40s, like my grandfather, who served during the time period of one of the most popular government in exiles, they're all past now. And or they're too old to remember. The ones who are 95 to 100 years old, they're too old to remember and to talk this long like I do. So in theory, I'm honoring all these men and women who served during that time period and lived through that time period because it's nothing new. These are all been done before, and it's all military predominantly, and then federal where it has to be because it has to be constitutional. But military can act without, and that tells you that in the unconventional warfare. It tells you specifically if the United States government does not support this, it doesn't matter. If it needs to be done militarily, then it needs to be done. And so it's so beautiful what everybody's watching, because if you'll know those entities, then you'll know the auto pen is all part of the operation. Obama resurfacing is all pre-planned. Everything's pre-planned. And then you'll be able to look at all the normies jump ship because they took the bait, and all of a sudden now, oh, there's a special counsel. And look at them now. Some of those influencers like Gunther, that turd, and now he's like, oh, there's a special counsel. And I blasted him today. I went under the comment box and I'm like, here's your post just a couple of days ago. You jumped ship. I mean, here it is. We screenshot it. We got you. You don't need to be leading people. But these are the people with the big 1 million, 2 million, 3 million followers. They're the ones that's getting all the attention. It's like, I don't want the numbers for that reason, but it's like, my gosh, retired veteran here. Here's the you could have known this 5 years ago, 6 years ago, if you knew what you're supposed to know by laws and orders. And it sounds like a broken record. But that's what everybody's watching. So when President Trump says the best is yet to come, well, this ties into the court case. Everybody heard all those chants, follow the money. Nothing can stop what's coming. Why did all these people chant that if they didn't want to see what's coming, what's happening? This draining of the swamp. I mean, there's so much stuff. My dad tells people all the time, he says, I've forgotten more Alabama football than you'll know. Well, I'm the same way. I'm like, well, I've forgotten so much of the stuff I've written in my books that I have to go back and read my own books because there's so many layers of information and everything that I can't tell it all in one sitting. It would take probably 3 or 4 full, complete 8-hour day, not 8-hour days, but 8 hours in a day on a podcast for me to make a notes and layer everything and not give any descriptions under it and go through everything that's happened economically, law-wise, from acts and bills and things of that, and also military. I mean, and that's probably conservative number. That's probably pretty conservative. That's really conservative to say 3 or 4 days with 8 hours at a time. What all has taken place that is so fundamentally reset back to our foundation that President Trump's done. So all these people chanted these things. And the best one is the best is yet to come. It ties directly into what's happening right now. And he just said it again a couple of weeks ago, the best is yet to come, and he posted that, or he reposted someone's post, the best is yet to come. And so that tells you if he's reposting it which that was about a week or two, I have to go back and look at the timestamp, then it's not here yet. So the best is yet to come, and we're not there yet. And law still shows we're in a continuity of government. Partial, which means we're on the ladder because it's partially revoked. Meaning, okay, we were in a full, now we're in a partial. So we're winding down. All right, the plane's descending. It's coming to the runway. All right, and the bells are coming. Get your seatbelts back on. All right. Now, I've had some rough landings in my life on aircraft. I don't know what it is about me. You don't want to fly with me. I always get the worst air flights. I don't know what it is. But I always get the ones that are real bumpy and crosswinds, and that pilots have to really put their skills down. And so, but we always land. The pilot knew what they were doing. We always land. President Trump knows what he's doing. The military knows what they're doing. They don't need you questioning them, especially at this point. At this point, you need to shut your mouth, and if it's bumpy, then close your eyes, grab a pillow, hold the person's hand next to you on the plane, whatever you got to do. Or if you're like me, I'm saying, hey, can you bring me some 8 Scotch on the rocks real quick, right? Let me have them. To the stewardess, all right? And get to where it's kind of like Dramamine or something like that. Just chill the you-know-what out. We're on the descend now, and the laws show that. So nobody should be jumping ship right now. But if you're just a follower, which is okay, but if you're just a follower and you're not an influencer, leave all the influencers who are still creating drama and propaganda and wishy-washy. They're up one day, down the next, up one day. That is no way to lead right now during this time period, because I understand people need direction and they're lost. They don't know what's been going on because they haven't found someone like me. That's fine. They need to. But until then, that's what everybody's supposed to be doing. And so you're on the descend. The best is yet to come. Best is a chess term. So I'll use Jenny, and I'll be the bad guy. That way I don't pick on Jenny. But if Jenny was playing me in chess and I'm the bad guy, all right, well, sometimes you don't want to outright beat your opponent, especially if you're skilled in chess. Those guys who are skilled, guys and gals who are skilled at chess, they're so skilled that they can trap their opponent versus beating their opponent. That's why when you watch chess matches, go watch these guys and watch the experts play. They think long and hard. They study the board before they ever think about making a move. After the first move, they're sitting there going, okay, you move the pawn there. They're sitting there looking. Then they'll make a move. And sometimes they'll retreat their move. Sometimes they'll advance it, and then the next play, they'll retreat it. And then their opponent will go, okay, well, he retreated on that. So when you look at a chess match and you think of very, very skilled people, then that's when you have to go, okay, I trust President Trump. I love President Trump. I trust him. And then it depends on, have you read the plan in place? Have you studied the plan? Do you comprehend the plan? Then you can also not comprehend it completely, but still love and trust because you've seen things that's benefited you. There's that variable. So there's ways to trust President Trump without even knowing completely. But it's not just him, because the laws show it's military and it's world leaders and it's our leaders and it's bipartisan. It was a Democratic House, again, that introduced the war order. So when you hear Bernie Sanders and Elizabeth Warren and all these people complaining now, some of that's theater, some of it's distraction, some of it's real. It's them exposing themselves. That'll all come out in the wash on who was playing a role and who you never hear of again. Look at all the people. Look, where's John Cassius? Where's Rick Sanatorium? And where'd all these people go? Where'd all these people, just Republicans alone, where'd they go? Fiorna, or whatever her name was, Carly Fiorna, where'd she go? Where'd all these people go? Even Republicans. Where's Mitt Romney? Where are all these people? So the best is yet to come. It's a chess term, meaning we're not going to beat you outright. We're going to best you. That alone can show you straight out the gate that it's all pre-planned. This is all strategic, and there's nothing you should fear. Nothing. But you also should be licking your chops because of what they're about to unveil to everybody. When you best somebody, it'd be like Jenny. If Jenny wanted to humiliate me, not beat me outright and go, ha, beat you. The worst way to beat someone is to stalemate them, meaning to trap them. And then they have to do what? Jenny would have to say to me, well, dear, I got you trapped. And you know it. You know you're trapped. You can't move. You have nowhere to go on the board. You're trapped. And now you know what you got to do. Well, someone who's trapped and stalemate with no moves on the board, they have to do what? Accept defeat, raise the white flag. But then there may be something there, though, that Jenny put in there before that match. She may have said, you know what, Derek? If I beat you at any capacity, here's what you have to do. That's what you're watching right now. And that's why I've told people from the get-go, don't judge somebody because you don't know. Same thing with General Flynn. I kept telling people over and over, stop pinning me with a general. He's the general. I wasn't. I can say what he can't. If he sneezes the wrong way, if he hesitates the wrong way, if he pauses the wrong way, if he farts the wrong way, it's all over the internet. And boop, the plan's exposed. It also reflects on the hosts, podcasters who are asking him questions as well. It shows how incompetent they are for asking a general, are we in a military operation? That is beyond me that anybody would ask a general that question. Go look at the laws. Go look at the orders. Seek to comprehend what the laws and orders say. Host, you're supposed to be a host, and you're trying to grow up a podcast. Well, when the people find out that you don't know a dang thing about laws and orders, then guess what they're going to do? They're going to remember the one who did the whole time, the whole big picture, the whole thing. So Jenny would say, all right, I'm going to get you. And if I get you, here's what you got to do. Because I have water, food, shelter. I have people who's going to come support me. They're going to, if it rains, if you're playing outside, they're going to hold an umbrella over me until you raise the white flag and you surrender, and then you tell exactly what I want you to say. That's what a plea deal does. And then the parameter of a military occupation means that if that person were to retaliate, well, they can't retaliate anywhere because there's a parameter set. So all the people out there saying, well, what if they retaliate this way? Well, it depends on what it is. COVID was a retaliation, but that was something that they couldn't pinpoint because that was something that could have been, and it was one person. President Trump, if you go back and listen to his press conferences, which I did the other day, he said it's one person in China. One person created all these deaths. Well, that one person could have been one of those smaller number that I'm talking about, one of those little bitty tiny ponds. That's the last man or woman on a totem pole that no one knew who was working for the what? The big ones. The names like Epstein and them that people only know the big names. They don't know all the people up under them. So see, all these people look selfish all of a sudden because, oh, President Trump, you turned on us and you're splintering and you're breaking off MAGA and all this other stuff and you won't release this and you said this and you're protecting pedophiles. Anybody who said that, you're a damn fool. There is no other way to slice the hair. You're a damn fool. Epstein opens up Clinton, Obama, Bush, the whole thing. Epstein took a state charge back in 2008. Who was the president in 2008 again? Took a state charge. So that means he had a what? A plea deal. Who was the president? Obama. Who was the vice president? Biden. All right. Then move forward, 2010. President Trump said what? The greatest scandal in United States history. He didn't say Russia collusion. He didn't say anything of his. What did he say? It's the Uranium One deal. Well, who was that? That would be Hillary Clinton. That'd be Bill Clinton and Obama. That's also during the time period that Putin was not president of Russia. He was the prime minister, which is why he handed the soccer ball to President Trump. Capitulation, July 16, 2018. We broke the nuclear forces treaty shortly after that in October. And then next thing you know, there's a quote unquote war starting up, as people think. It's not. All right. So Putin had to go into Ukraine and knock out all the bio weapons labs that quote unquote Biden and the whole quote unquote Biden administration said they didn't have. Mitt Romney said they didn't have. All that was strategic, all done on purpose. Now you're seeing President Trump hammer Putin. So see, now that is what you call a plea bargain. He says, we have everything on you. Here's a line in the sand. You can capitulate. You can come across here. And if you do so, we know that you weren't president, but you were prime minister. So you knew about Uranium One. You were in a picture smiling with Hillary and knowing what all they were doing, and maybe not know. He may not have known what they were exactly doing. So you come over here and you play ball with us. But here's what's going to happen on the flip side. This is where your scrutiny comes as well, and you're going to have to take that because we're not doing it anymore. It's America first. And you saw President Trump's truth today. He said we're not, our military's not a joke, anything. We were used all these years. We're not anymore. That's how you flip that picture around, and that's what they've done. So they've stalemate the king. When the king is stalemate and the queen's not in the picture, and President Trump just recently said that the Queen of England and the King and Queen are central casting the current over there. Central casting. He just said this in when he was over there a week or two back, whenever that was now. So the Queen he walked in front of, that the liberals lost their mind to, said he didn't know any etiquette and all this. She's out of the picture. When in chess, when the Queen is off the board, the King is stalemate and then trapped, and nothing can protect it. And then they have to do what? Raise the white flag. So now you're seeing quote unquote Biden say, I made every decision. That's going to lead into what? All the other truths. It's going to lead into all the deals that he made with China, that President Trump called him a Manchurian candidate. I mean, all these things. Hunter Biden, Ukraine, Mitt Romney's kid, Nancy Pelosi's kid, they were all working for Ukraine. It's going to open this massive everything because Congress has already reported on it. I still have that video in my phone, 4.5 minutes long, of President Trump two or 3 years ago, talking about the $30 million that Joe and his family made and all this, and people didn't even listen to it. Just, it's the liberals are, it's a Republican that you just making up stuff and this, that, and other. And Republicans, conservatives only focus on what they care about. Hiccups, every hiccup versus the bigger picture. So the king stalemate. Now you're seeing Obama resurface, very key. And then you're seeing quote unquote Biden and auto pen resurface. So it depends on what side aisle you want to be on. Do you want to know on the front? And you can know because it's already there. There's nothing new. It's all there. It's all special operations. Or flip over and you're going to see it roll out the way it is. But you don't have to. You don't have to do that. You don't have to jump ship like the others did. So this goes down to this 23-939. A court case, March 19th, 2024, a docket. That's 4 months before the quote-unquote assassination attempt. And I've broken this down before, but I'll do it again just in case there's someone new listening. But Executive Order 12333 is called the assassination order. All throughout this docket case, it references Executive Order 12333. The question in the case asks, can a president order SEAL Team 6 to commit murder, assassinate a political rival? And then it goes on to say senior level officials, multiple senior level officials, and combat generals, many of them, resounding no. Now, then you got to pull in really quick what's going on right now. What are the liberals doing? The higher up ones. Elizabeth Warren, Bernie Sanders, Jasmine Crockett, that group. They're yelling, it's unconstitutional what he's doing and all this other stuff. Candace Owens jumped on that. Talking about don't obey an unlawful order. All this other bull crap. So they're saying it's unconstitutional. Well, that's where you have to know laws and orders, see, to know that it's not unconstitutional. But then that's where you also have to see that the tie-in to what's going on right now, and the tie-in to this case. It's a petition, but it's there, and it says, can a president order SEAL Team 6 to commit murder to assassinate a political rival? Then that's where you have to go and look at who was president the last time SEAL Team 6 was involved with anything militarily taking out a political leader. That would be Barack Hussein Obama and Osama bin Laden. May the 2nd, 2011, Obama took out Osama bin Laden. And then the same year, 5 months later, pause for a moment. Who was Obama's Secretary of State from 2009 to 2013? Hillary Clinton. 2011, very key year. Gaddafi stood at the UN Assembly where he said many, many powerful things, but one particular thing he said, the same 5 powers cannot rule the world and tell the world what to do. Well, this was before President Trump. That's why you got to know laws and orders to know where the line was drawn in the sand over in the 8/2016. And everything from that day forward is a strategic, pre-planned, special operation, military operation. Everything before that was the swamp, the bureaucrats, all of your dirty Republican and Democrat on both sides that created their own little system. So he didn't mean the next thing I'm about to say. He said Dick Cheney was friends with Saddam Hussein. He said, are we not going to investigate what happened to Saddam Hussein? The Americans, the United States, will do the same thing to us that they did to Hussein. He meant the United States of the swamp. Well, Dick Cheney, he said it, Dick Cheney was friends with Saddam Hussein, and then they killed him. He said this at this UN, and then he also said they will do the same thing to us. They will hang us. Assad, who was the leader of Syria up till December the 8th, 2024. Why don't Republicans celebrate that? Where the hell have you been, Republicans, conservatives? Where were you? You're not even knowing that President Trump just signed a trade deal, and he's the first president to end national emergencies and executive orders from the swamp. He ended the national emergency and the executive order with Syria. And now we got a trade deal with Syria? Who served in the military when we were in Syria? Derek Johnson. Y'all wonder how I know so much stuff. You might want to wait till everything else comes out. Now, I'm not the only one, but guess who served under Obama, and guess where we were? Syria. Oh, and then President Trump started hammering President Trump about Syria. Now, all of a sudden, we've got a trade deal with Syria. Most people can't even put their own state on the blank canvas of the United States. That's pretty sad. Data shows 50% of Americans can't take a blank canvas of the United States and put their state on the map correctly. So I dang sure know you can't take and put Syria on the map in relation to where Syria is to Iran, Iraq, and the whole Middle East. Because if you could, you'd realize how big that is. Plus ending a national emergency through executive order of the bureaucrats, but more specifically with Hussein Obama. All right. So it's very key. 2011, Gaddafi, 5 months after bin Laden was taken out, Gaddafi was quote unquote assassinated. Who ties in with Benghazi, Libya? I believe that was Hillary Clinton. Who was the leader of Libya from 1969 to 2011? Gaddafi. What does this court case say? Can a president order SEAL Team 6 to commit murder on a political rival? Well, the last time SEAL Team 6 was involved in anything, again, was Osama and bin Laden. And in the same year, 5 months after, Gaddafi is quote unquote being assassinated. That alone right there opens up all your massive case of worms with Obama, the Clintons, because again, there was Secretary of State Clinton. So you got to have relevance. You have to have relevance, but you also want it done militarily. You want it done militarily because the military is not going to show bias. And also, if the people can't believe in military and military laws, then you might as well say the hell with everything. That's why military laws and military orders, and also the laws and orders that pair from the federal with what's going on right now, are so very vital, important. And here's the other kicker. All these people yelling unconstitutional, but especially the ones that people think are real and legit, and Senate and House and all these other, Bernie Sanders, Jasmine Crockett, all these people, Elizabeth Warren, saying it's unconstitutional. Guess whose names are not in the War Powers Act of 1973? Obama, Clinton, and Bush Sr. And they saying President Trump is unconstitutional. Guess what Title 50, Chapter 33, Section 1550 is? Like a broken freaking record. That's President Trump's. And it shows in the bottom that, quote unquote, Joe Biden is relinquishing his authority and functions vested in the president of 1550, which was December the 20th, 2019, which was the last presidential report of Iran to the Congress up until 2024. And all this is supposed to be a coincidence. See, if Americans knew what they're supposed to know and forget about all the other stuff, think about what every American could be doing right now. Now, you may not want to sit there and talk to your husband or wife more at the dinner table or sitting on the couch. You may want them to go to their man cave, but whatever, teach their own. But it frees up so much of your life from listening and thinking that, oh, all these podcasts. You got to find the ones who knows what's going on. And that's also how we got to drain the swamp, because the journalists out there for the past, you could say 50 years, but really the last 30 years heavily, and 40 years, have just been just the enemy of the people. It's just like President Trump said, they're the enemy. They don't report things the way it's supposed to be. They don't talk about things the way it's supposed to. And then people who just sit around and talk, like the Rogans of the world, and they just sitting around talking perspectives, and it's not sometimes perspectives, but this is not a therapy counseling session. This is a military operation. All right. If you need people like that in your life, then listen to stuff outside of military and politics or government. But you don't need people like that in your life. It's the same thing about doctors. We all know this. Do they treat the symptom or they cure the problem? Which one is it? All these people out there, like the Gunthers of the world and Candace Owens and the Alex Joneses and all these people, they're just, and even Charlie Kirk, but at least he's a little bit better with some things with perspectives, but still to do with societal things, which is fine to address those things. But some of this stuff, it's just all like, it's like I say all the time, like when you're in the kitchen with your grandma or you're cooking and hey, you got the little wooden spoon and hey, you want to lick the spoon? You want to get the chocolate off? And you get one little lick and then they take it away from you and you're like, whoa, what the world? But then you're like, okay, you remain positive and you're like, you know what? I'm going to get the cake though. I'm going to get that cake. I'm going to give me a piece of that cake. And then your grandma going, well, cake's all done, taking it down the road to Susie's house. And you're like, whoa, I don't get any cake. That's exactly what these people are doing. It's that many out there doing that to people. And all you need to know are all the laws and the orders and basic functions of government. I mean, your NDAAs prove it. Look at all these people. Look at all these Christians. Woo, God almighty. Look at all these people calling you if it's like Christian versus Christian right now. And you're like, well, I'm a better Christian than you. And you're like, wait, what? Like, I don't know if that's possible. And then it's all these people talking about Israel. And just going, you're an idiot. Israel killed JFK. I'm like, I'm pretty sure that JFK died in 1963, okay, whether he did or didn't, that's a different story. But let's just go with that for a moment. Just let me hear me out. Say, okay, does a man dying in 1963 and Iran having nuclear weapons, which one's more prevalent here? Which one's more important? Pretty sure I'm going to go with my generals who say that they're at 83.7, and the International Atomic Energy Agency, who are in these National Defense Authorizations Act that are prevalent right now. I'm pretty sure I'm going to go with that right now. We'll worry about the other later. Let's go with what's more threatening to our life right now. Look at all these people who are wanting to argue still and fuss and just want to be right with somebody on something. Like,
And
that just baffles me that all the people who did that this past week as well, and 2 weeks ago with Israel. I'm like, do you realize that the NDAAs have Israel in here as well? Do you not know that our military, all of our military publications from 2018, 2019, 2020, they're all with Israel in there, Gaza, Egypt, cross-border operations? Do you not? It just baffles me. Well, that's not the real Israel, and that ain't the same Israel. And I'm like, well, God says any nation against Israel. It don't matter if Israel is Pluto now. It says any nation against Israel will be damned, will be decimated. I mean, then you got the Church of Christ. They don't even believe in the Old Testament. And I'm like, well, why did Jesus on the cross look up to God and ask the cup to pass from him? Why didn't he just say, hey, myself, I don't want to do this myself. Can a cup pass for me myself? I mean, I don't know. I mean, I can get going. I'm like a governmental Theo Vaughn, where I'm like, okay, you're not making sense.
that's a whole nother podcast.
Yeah, I'm like, this is like, I'm like,
But
so
real quickly,
laws and
Derek,
orders.
I want to say real quickly though, to the point of these fake influencers, podcasters out there, right? So we're going to see more of this happening. The confusion
Oh
is
yeah.
going to be more real. But I do want to say a lot of them out there are using Chat GPT. They're using Grok to get their information. And just know, everybody, that these two entities of Grok and Chat GPT, they tend to be a little bit more left leaning in favor of the left. So you've got to be careful, you guys, with what you're listening to when it comes to these podcasters, when it comes to these, AI, Grok and Chat GPTs, because they're a little bit on the other side. And what these fake influencers are doing is they're trying to splinter the MAGA movement, because we have midterms coming up. It's not going to happen, but I'll tell you what, they are putting out a lot of false information about. I just got a message right now about one of them on X today talking about how Trump partied with Epstein and this, that, and the other. I mean, it's going a little too far, everybody. And if you can't see it, I mean, sometimes, right? Sometimes it's common sense, though, too, right? So you really got to be careful, everybody. And I can't stress it enough. I know I sound like a broken record, but at the end of the day, you got to be careful who you're listening to, who you're following, and what you're putting into your mind. Because it's. I keep saying it's a wild, wild west out there, Derek.
I tell you what. I tell you what's funny though. I tell you what is hilarious though. So old Gunther, I know I'm giving him too much credit here, even just roasting him, but old dude, he got 1.4 million followers. President Trump shared some of his stuff years so back, whenever it was. Well, then he's up and down now. He's like, and his people are just trashing him. Like, pick a side. Now you're wishy-washy. So even his own people just, but it's not really affecting him completely. 1.4 million, but so someone, I just happened to catch it. It was so funny. This person said, "Can we help Gunther out?" And they got Grok on there. Speaking of Grok, this was so funny though. Grok said this because he was asking, "What kind of government protects pedophiles?" And I'm like, you do realize that first off, you don't know. If you knew we're in a military occupation, and if you knew anything about what you're supposed to know, you wouldn't even have to say anything like this. But just because, so this person put that in Grok component. It says, this is so funny, it backfired on old Gunther. It says, a corrupt one where elite influence shields perpetrators from justice. See the United States government 2008 non-prosecution deal for Jeffrey Epstein at granting immunity despite 34 confirmed minor victims, with Acosta citing intelligence ties for leniency. Victims' rights were ignored, prioritizing the powerful over the vulnerable. Now that was Grok answering that, and I'm like, see, it always goes back to the origin of everything. And so many, that's why Republicans, if you don't want to look like a liberal or a conservative, patriot, whatever you are, if you don't want to look like a liberal, then you always have to go to the origin of things. And that's why sometimes people take me sometimes as, whatever you want to call it, cocky, harsh, whatever. But I, I'm a military veteran who is operating from a military veteran standpoint. Like I'm not a host, and that's why you don't see me on a bunch of shows with this, that, and other. I don't do my own shows like that. People have me on their shows. I don't have people on my show, and so it's just, I'm an operational guy. So, if everybody wants to know what's going on, you got to go to the origin. You got to know what President Trump's working with. And in all reality, in true reality, but also, and I don't mean this towards anybody else, uh, I like Jenny. I like a few people. I like a lot of people's show I go on, and I go on a lot repetitively because these people have proven themselves out with their questions, with their passion, with their heart. And so, but in reality, it, people wouldn't need anybody else outside of that when it comes to this spectrum, meaning like the military law, the military operation, that portion. Now, if someone's skilled in finance out there and they're talking what President Trump did, and it goes to laws and it goes to the orders and it goes to that, that's something I don't do. I just stick with what's going on with the military aspects and tie that in because that's my wheelhouse. And the other thing people also need to take in mind, like when I'm on with the colonels, special operations colonels, just because someone doesn't know something either doesn't mean that it discredits them from the whole board. So like the other evening, one of the colonels was asked a question. Well, we all got asked the same question on the John Michael Chambers show. Uh, we all get asked the same question, same thing. And Colonel Sellers was asked a question about geopolitical, and he just said straight up, he's like, I'm gonna be honest. I don't have an answer for this. I'm not. This is not my wheelhouse. It's not my. It's not my domain. Well, the average person out there, they'll probably respect him a little more because he's a colonel, but he's a full bird colonel retired, and he was the former deputy commander of Delta Force, which is the most elite unit out there. Sorry, Marine Corps, but they are. But so it don't mean anything. It don't mean that you can't know, but it just means that, hey, it's not his wheelhouse. So many people think that you can't, if you don't know something, that you can't know, something else. And so many Americans' mindsets have just got to change. It's a fundamental reset. It's not a change, though, from the standpoint of fundamental, for the liberals' sake. It's just a fundamental reset, getting back to what matters. Our foundation, laws and orders, and then accountability, responsibility, transparency, and then all of those will lead to your integrity and sustainability and maintainability, because when we flip this whole thing around and drain the swamp and we get all good people in, then it's a matter of doing what? Staying on top of that and making sure no discrepancies pop up.
Amen. And
With that,
everybody,
yeah.
amen. Sorry, Derek, I got to cut this. I had 90 minutes. I'm already a little bit late, but and everybody, you got to listen to Derek, because Derek really, I mean, he's been over the target since he came on the scene, and he's giving you laws and orders. I mean, it's already there. It's in black and white. So if you guys have friends and family or people that are looking for somebody to follow Derek, follow Donald Trump. If it's just those two people, then you're going to get what you need. But they also have to do the work too and the research. Don't just believe it because we say it.
Oh
But
yeah.
Derek has been over the target, and I give him kudos all the time because he really has, and others have been dragged through the mud too. But Derek has really taken the slings and the arrows like Trump, and it's nothing that he rewrote. It was already there. He just laid it out in layman's terms for us as we the people to maybe be easier for us to understand it. So I really think, for those of you that stuck and stayed with Derek, pat yourselves on the back, because he's not going anywhere. I think he's going to be a good, or not a good, I think he's going to be something here in the future, a good leader, a good teacher. I don't know what, but I do think that there's something on the horizon for Derek. So Derek, and I am fortunate enough to have Derek here with me every other Monday. So Derek, we'll see you in 2 weeks.
Sounds good. Yeah, we'll be 2 weeks closer to more fun. I mean,
but just everybody, you prepare your minds. Derek's saying it, I'm saying it. We're going to see more of it, but don't be surprised. Actually, as you see these podcasters just exposing themselves, get excited about it. Don't pay attention to their bullshit, their rhetoric, because that's what they're trying to do. But get excited, because it's just going to give you more clarity on who not to follow. So with that, everybody, God bless you, Derek. Thank you so much, sweetie, and keep up the great work. I'm very proud of you, and everybody here. We'll see you on Wednesday. We have Rob Cunningham from The Cool Show, Troy. We'll talk about XRP, and then we'll be over on X for Silk from the Diamond and Silk Show. So, and then Juan will be with me on Thursday. So, Derek, thank you again, my friend. I'm very proud of you. Keep up the great work, sweetie.
sounds good. I
Thank you,
appreciate it.
everybody.
We'll see y'all soon.
All right. Have a great night, Derek. Good night, everybody.